Alright, welcome back. We actually have some massive news. Today on the 27th of July 2023, a new update rolled out. And it's mostly going to be about this right here. An error that caused a lack of fragment damage to parts of helicopters and aircraft when fragmentation munitions with a caliber of 20mm and higher exploded inside the fuselage and wings has been fixed. This essentially means real shatter is gone. Real shitter. Basically the update or the quote-unquote fix additional mechanic or whatever you want to call it that essentially ruined every gun in the game apart from MG rounds. That's why 50 cals and stuff were much better than cannons, at least proportionally. Now guns are actually somewhat workable again. I can't really tell you how consistent they are, but we have looked at some examples in the game. And we have looked at some examples in a test flight, and most importantly, we can actually look at it in the hangar. So I've been recording some clips shooting at the bot. The damage seems pretty consistent overall. I'll show you that in a minute here. But let's look at the MiG-29. Let's go to protection analysis. And before, you basically had to run the APHE, where you would shoot at someone, it would penetrate into the fuselage, and then it would explode. But you can tell that how long it needs to fly until it explodes. Now, with the HCIE, shoot someone, it explodes almost immediately, and you can tell that the damage here is pretty substantial. It blacks the fuselage, the wing root, it reds the tail section. Let's shoot at a wing. Black wing, red wing, it does some pretty significant damage now. Of course, these planes are pretty big, so when you hit something, it still doesn't explode the entire vehicle. But let's look at some props, because before I've done this with the Key 84, the 30mm variant. Let's take a look at that. So we go to protection analysis. We go to the 30mm HEI. Oh, that's 20mm, excuse me. And now if you shoot somewhere, it's actually going to do some splash damage. Engine cowl, wing roots, everything is destroyed. Let's shoot at the empennage here. We hit that, black, orange, red, red. It actually damages the entire plane now. I'll show you some examples from, I actually did this like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, where I was shooting at the vehicles and looking what the damage would be, and the damage was absolutely pitiful. Look at this. This is actually pretty decent damage. Before, what you had to do was basically go to aviation, Russia, and you go to rank 7, I think it was, and then you had to pick the MiG-27, and then when you pick this missile, see, this is how you had to kill someone before. Now you can actually use your cannon. So let's look at a few examples that I collected just a little bit ago. So we are flying the Yak-3U with tracer rounds, and we are going to be shooting at IL-2s. Keep in mind, IL-2s are very heavily armored, and this is a very low fragmentation amount. I'm going to shoot a few rounds. I'm just going to clicking. That's 6 rounds kill. That's another 4 rounds. Keep in mind, these are IL-2s. These things are pretty tanky, and Shveks are notoriously bad versus heavily armored vehicles, because the penetration is like 2mm. So, let's look at the LA5s here. First of all, we have good target prioritization, and we go for the one in the back. Sorry, that's just automated response. Click, dead. Go for that one, then we miss, and we get into this massive sizzle fight. He's trying his absolute hardest to make me overshoot. And because I'm going a little bit faster, it's very hard for me to do so. And this is what I mean, by the way, with being slower is going to give you the advantage in a scissor. Because even though I'm moving further, I'm doing more work. He's flying straight, but he's going slower. He's still staying behind me. But enough of that. We are about to actually pull lead on this guy. I'm not going to bore you to death with this stuff. We are going to get a shot here. And again, keep in mind, these are tracers. Missed the first shot. Pull in. It does some pretty hefty damage now. Let's take a look at the MiG-29 versus the Sable. We are directly behind him, so the HE will not do that much damage. First hit. Sure, it looks like I'm simply getting hits. But do keep notice of every hit that I do get does some pretty hefty damage. Takes his aileron off, takes part of his tail off. Vulcan, 1 or 2 shells, he blows up. 30mm, 1 shell, he blows up. More 30mm, 1 or 2 shells, he blows up. Point blank, of course, maybe that's 3 or 4 hits. But before, you had to hit so many rounds before your guns did anything. The Vulcan now the 30mm, basically everything that was affected by real shatter is actually somewhat workable again. And that is absolutely terrific news. So I do hope that they don't revert it again in the future. Maybe they start reworking it. Maybe they'll look at something that... Maybe they want to make it more realistic in the future. I'm completely fine with it. But please, if it ends up not working at all, can we please get it reversed? Just like we have right now. Because the fact that stuff like this actually does damage now. Keep in mind, this does not have the most amount of fragmentation. It's only 4 grams of explosive mass. And I hit the wing root. It explodes. And it damages half the plane. Even if I shoot from directly behind, it's still going to do a decent amount of damage. It's not super severe. Of course, this is not going to absolutely kill him. But comparing this to what it was before, this is an absolute godsend, and this actually makes me somewhat excited to play the game again. You've seen that I have been playing a lot of missile slays. A lot of vehicles that are notoriously pretty bad. Because it has good missiles. And before, that was the real way to get kills. Because when you didn't use a missile, your gun did absolute piss. You'd have to hit people 6 or 7 times. Now, we might actually be able to play the game again and actually try to get some gun kills. Because that's again, probably the favorite part of my game. Dogfighting people and shooting them down with my main cannon instead of locking my missile and looking at it, how it's going to end someone's life and send it back to the hangar. So, I hope you are all as stoked about this as I am. I know this is kind of a boring video, but this is one of those news moments that I think it's actually important to notify the community about. Because I do think it's going to bring some people back to play Air RB again, or at least even play fighters in Ground RB. Because right now, air-to-air combat, other than at like 12.0, was basically dead. But before we really get going here, I want to take a look at the... Because I haven't actually done this myself yet. I want to look at the protection analysis of the... what's it called? The Vulcan. So let's shoot center mass. Hit. Only orange and yellow. That's not the best damage. But we're also shooting at a pretty thick fuselage. And keep in mind, this thing has hella rate of fire. Okay, so this isn't actually the best. Let's look at some API. Does that actually do anything now? That's just going to over-penetrate. It's probably better to shoot center mass with this kind of stuff. Yeah, it's just going to over-penetrate. I guess it's not the best on the Vulcan, but it might also be the damage model. So let's look at a different plane. And keep in mind, this thing has a stupendous amount of rate of fire, so it might actually be a bit better in game. Protection analysis on high rate of fire guns is of course a little bit skewed, because it doesn't really portray the damage per second. Here we go, that's a red instantly with 1 hit. That's red also in 1 hit. Let's shoot at the back here. Dead engine. Let's shoot in the head-on. We hit someone in the center fuselage basically. That's going to go through the entire plane. This is some pretty decent damage. Now keep in mind, if you shoot like that, like 7 or 8 rounds into the front, this is all going to be black. Now let's look at HE, because that's what the real shatter is actually about. That's black, with a singular shell. Black and red. This is good stuff. Sure, it doesn't cripple someone with 1 round, but you're not gonna be hitting someone with 1 round when you shoot at 6,000 rounds a minute. But yeah, I hope you are as happy about this news as I am. You will all see me in a day or 2 when I publish the next video. Thank you all for watching, and you'll see me in the next one.